Hi, good afternoon, everybody. So welcome to our Level 2 Extended Maths Certificate live Q&A session. I am Nicola Woodford-Smith. I am the subject partner at the maths team here at Pearson. I look after any of the resources or customer conversations that we have together to hear what it is teachers and students need in order to deliver all of their qualifications. But particularly we're interested in our brand new certificate for the extended maths today. We have got a great crew sat alongside me. So Seb Brummel, he is our senior qualification manager for our level 1 and level 2 qualifications. So anything that comes under that umbrella, including GCSE maths and GCSE statistics, the Edexcel Awards and entry-level certificate. With Seb is his product manager, Amy High. She also helped develop this qualification with other colleagues. So she's sat with us as well. And then we've got Mel Muldowney, who Mel is at the chalk phase. So she's 50% of the Just Maths team. And Mel's going to offer some really insightful options and experiences on how to deliver or how to embed this certificate alongside GCSE maths, for example. Lots of kind of teacher perspectives on how this certificate runs. So we're going to share the floor between us today. We are going to do a very brief overview of the assessment. I'll put the agenda up there for you. So we're going to have a very quick look at the assessments and the content, and then we're going to take your questions and answer them as concisely but as full as possible. And then of course we'll make sure that we've got enough time to answer any other questions that you might have as you are embarking upon delivering this qualification for the new academic year. So let's get into the first section. So as a qualification, this certificate is allowing students to extend their knowledge of their GCSE maths content. It makes them really dig deeper and become more exploratory masters of that key stage 4 mathematics, and really does build that foundation for any further study. I just want to say that I'm presuming that guys that are attending this session have been through that self-paced training. There is a link to that later on in the slides. If you haven't attended that, this goes into, it will cover all of this information a little bit more in depth. But I just want to make sure that we've got the foundation of talking about what the qualification is before we start to pick up those questions. So apologies if you think I am rushing through it, but obviously the priority is to get to those questions. And as I said, I'm presuming that self-paced training has been carried out. So we've got 2 papers. We have had the first series. First series is underway and marking as we speak. So paper 1 and paper 2, non-calc and then a calc. They're equally weighted. So both of them, same duration of 75 minutes, both worth 60 marks. And the content and assessment objectives are shared across the 2. And of course, the grading scale isn't as you would expect at a GCSE because this is not a GCSE qualification. So we have a pass, a merit, a distinction and a distinction star. And the exams are sat in the summer window. So we are going to jump straight into the content that is covered. And we get asked this, we've been asked this quite a lot of times around particularly the launch. And the biggest question is, what's the difference between, this one and AQA's level 2 further maths, or, what are the similarities and differences? And the important words between those qualifications is, this is an extended qualification, and the AQA level 2 is a further. So this qualification does not take students further into the world of mathematics that may encroach upon that level 3 content that has yet to be seen. So you will not find any calculus, you will not find matrices. And we were really passionate about listening to teachers, of course. We did a lot of research for teachers, and we were really passionate about sticking to our guns and not taking students further than they need to at this level. We need to remind ourselves that this is level 2, and we wanted to stay within that level 2. We wanted to make sure that the students who are, targeted or predicted to be a grade 7 or above at GCSE were the students we were aiming this qualification at, and to make sure that they were being given the opportunity to take those top grade content topics at GCSE and just go that little bit deeper. So the key phrase here is there is no new A-level content. Of course, you will find that natural overlap, with fractional indices or negative indices, surd manipulation, circle theorems, proof. You'll find that creeping into A-level, of course, so you'll have that natural overlap, but nothing brand new from the A-level content comes into this qualification. Just bear in mind, keep that in mind, this is level 2. The specification is available on all of our platforms, so you can get hold of that using the link here. The next slide, I'm going to actually hand over to Mel, if that's okay, because as I mentioned at the beginning, she's a teacher, she's there. So she's there at the chalk face. So from Mel's perspective, Mel, I'll hand over to you. How do we deliver? That's a big question we get all the time. How do I deliver this qualification, especially thinking about, delivering GCSE maths as well?
So having spoken to lots of people that are delivering it or about to deliver it, because there's so many centres out there. We're one where we just launched it with our year 10 into 11. So we've got 45 kids that will deliver it, that will take this qualification next summer. So they're our real high-end achievers, and it is being delivered. We've taken our scheme of work, looked at where there is existing GCSE content that can be taken further and identified it in bright yellow. So it's there saying, look, take this further if you can. And then any content that we know isn't GCSE or sort of is an outlier, we're doing through after school sessions, booster sessions on a Thursday, I believe. But schools are doing all sorts of stuff in the same way they would do if it was any other level 2 qualification that they were doing. Some people have done it in extra, it's part of a extra qualification, so it's an option. And they've done that with I think there's a couple of schools out there that have got stats and this one as an option block. Obviously, they've put this in late. It was a stats block that they now shoehorned this in. But the vast majority of centres out there are doing it through so the after school booster, which they would be doing, because of the way the content is, especially at your top end, it really fits in with this current this current thinking out there about over teaching. So if you think about your grade 7, 8 and 9 students, we should be over teaching them the content, taking it deeper. So it fits alongside that. So, but there's so many different models out there, and we've got colleges, we've got schools, and it is totally different depending on your context. If you've got a question about how you could fit it in, I'm happy to answer, to do it offline, or even take the question and say, I'm this, how could I fit it in?
Yeah, that's really, really useful. I think, and certainly I've been talking to lots of teachers that have delivered it as well. And I think the most common one is they're delivering it alongside, within their timetable GCSE maths lessons, because there is that crossover, because you've got that top end content that is covered across both of the qualifications. So it's like as it says, an extension. So once you're delivering, let's, for example, say your circle theorems, this is a perfect opportunity when you leave the students to practice what they've been taught that lesson. You can then give them the extended maths certificate resources that we've put together to help them practice. And just to remind people that we have put resources, practice materials. There are so many available that we'll show links to at the end, with that independent learning in mind. So of course we see these guided learning hours and total qualification time, but there is a lot of crossover. That means that can all be embedded within the GCSE maths lesson. And like Mel said, the odd lunchtime booster, I've heard, you know, an afternoon after school club once every other week, for example, has been the favoured way to approach it. Mel, just on that, the scheme of work says it assumes 1 hour a week in year 11, and that students have followed the year 10 kind of scheme of work. Does that work? In your opinion, is that sufficient? Does it work with the recommended guided hours? We've obviously got the scheme of work here that people can click on and see, but what's your opinion on that?
Absolutely. When you consider you've got we're talking about our elite, our best students, that they should be able to cope. We should be teaching that, and then the GCSE is almost being taught as a consequence of deepening their understanding. So it should be easy. There will be stuff where you want to give them the practice, as we would want in maths anyway. But we are talking about our top students. So yeah, it should be easily done, in the same way that any other level 2 qualification that you were delivering from other boards up until this point.
Yeah, and
That
I
was
think it's
new
important to
content.
mention. Yeah, exactly. And I think it's important to mention that scheme of work, by the way, shows where it overlaps. You can just see at the bottom of that screenshot there, we've embedded, and I'll talk to you about other resources a bit later, I'm sure, but we've made it really easy to kind of pick this off the shelf, if you like, and start to run with it, which takes me perfectly into my next question. And I know I've just given an example of about circle theorems, but this is just kind of moving on seamlessly about how can I embed that level 2 extended maths into my GCSE maths lessons. And I'm thinking back to it's that almost like differentiation, isn't it, when you are delivering a particular topic. So here we have the scheme of work that I've mentioned earlier, but this particular scheme of work is the EMC special version, if you like, and it takes the GCSE maths 2-year scheme of work, but we have added in where the extended maths certificate spec references apply, where it almost maps some example questions that you can see there. We've also, if I just take that last screenshot off, we've also put a recommended hour, for this particular unit that students can spend on EMC. EMC, by the way, is just, you'll hear us abbreviate extended maths certificate to EMC quite often, but you can see how we've embedded the 2 schemes of work together, and we've also put in useful links to find those resources. So the practice papers, of course there is a textbook that has been produced. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, a bit later, but going back to that idea of differentiation, of course, when you have your class full of students and you set them off on task after you've delivered the content you wish for them to take that day, you then set different tasks. You're not going to have everybody working on the same thing. You may be picking out questions from different resources that you're used to using. And I remember always having kind of my top students working on a table together, a particular area of the classroom, and they knew they would be off. You know, they might have been my grade 8, grade 9s, and I would always extend them. This was before the extended maths certificate, of course, and I was naturally trying to extend them and get them ready for the next phase of their learning and to be the best mathematicians they could be. And this is where I was missing this qualification, because I could have been using these materials to help push them a bit further. And also, they were the students that would come along to that, you know, lunchtime drop-in or lunchtime clinic, I used to call it. Come along, if you've got a problem, come along and we can sit and have lunch together and go over any questions that you're not too sure of. So hopefully you can see with that scheme of work, in particular, as well as the mapping documents as well that we'll talk about, really help you see when you're delivering those GCSE maths specification reference points. That's where the EMC ones tie into as well. So the next question that I want to bring up here, our qualification manager, Seb, is going to take these for us. So where are the links between the other qualifications? And I know I've touched on it a little bit earlier, but Seb's going to talk a little bit about the mapping and how this compares to the AQA further maths qualification. So Seb, I'll let you talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. So one of the questions we do get asked quite a lot is sort of like, what are the links of you know, kind of how can I prove and how can I show where that overlap in content is? And we've got centres across the country. We've also got independent schools and international centres as well that were asking the same thing. Also, when we were developing the qualification, we did a lot of work with A-level teachers as well, because they wanted to sort of see, well, what's that foundational content that we're embedding that's going to lead onto that pathway into Key Stage 5 as well. So what we've done is in the in our scheme of work, the spreadsheet version of it, we've got a tab in there called EMC Spec, and in there we have provided all of the content area links to GCSE maths, to international Spec A, Spec B, to A level as well. So you can really sort of clearly see where all of those extended areas are and how they fit in. So, you know, you might be using, you know, we're so well embedded with our GCSE course now that chances are you've got your own scheme of work all set up and running. So this is a way that you can really just, you know, kind of lift and plug in where those are into your existing schemes of work. So all of that content crossover has already been sort of done for you. So it's got spec reference links, it's got all the additional guidance in there, so that shows the progression. And the other question that we've been asked quite a few times around this same sort of area is, how does the Level 2 Extended Maths certificate compare with the AQA further maths qualification? You know, some are thinking about switching over, some want to sort of, you know, kind of do that side-by-side comparison. So we've got a couple of links there. If you like the image, when you get this, have a look at the slides, you can click the image, that'll take you through to actually an FAQs page on our website, which has got it sort of quite neatly mapped out in a table of where the content crossover is between the two. But we've also produced a more detailed mapping document that shows all of the unique content to our qualification, the content that's common to both, and then the content that is unique to AQA's further maths certificate. So again, we've tried to be as sort of straightforward as we can to sort of show you that where everything sits, how you know, if you're thinking of switching over from further AQAs and having a look at this, you haven't got to sort of rip up everything and start again. That we've produced everything that makes that switch journey as simple as we possibly can, so that you can you know, see where the gaps are going to be and plug them into your own scheme of work. See which bits you're not going to have to worry about anymore, and which bits already exist, and where the sort of that new extended content sort of fits in. So when you have a look at the slides, those images there are links. They'll take you straight through to the scheme of work, the mapping documents, and the FAQs.
Yeah, that's really useful, Seb. And I think lots of questions that we get around what's different and what's similar are the most frequent, aren't they? And I think those mapping documents are so clear, and like you say, there's no need for anyone to start from a blank slate, if you like. We've done all of that work and that mapping, and I like the way you put that. You can see where there are certain things that you can leave behind, because you know, like we said at the top, there's no new content here. This is all supporting that independent learning journey, which of course in itself gets students ready for that Key Stage 5 or next, you know, whatever their next stage of education might be. I'm going to bring Amy into this next question. So we're in that period where we are still you know, using provisions coming out of the pandemic, and that brings in the exam aids. So obviously we have that for GCSE maths, but Amy, I was wondering if you can talk about this question and how long that exam aid is going to be available for, and of course how that applies to the extended maths certificate.
Yes, of course I can. So I'm actually doing the next few quite quick fire questions. So if you haven't seen in our self-paced training, there is an exam aid available for the Level 2 Extended Maths Certificate, which you can see on the screen. Currently, it'll be available till summer 2027 to match GCSE Maths. What we just want to really highlight here is that we will always ensure that it is consistent with GCSE Maths. So if we were to find that the formula sheet does stay after summer 2027 for GCSE Maths, then it will stay for EMC. So we just wanted to make that clear for you all.
Yeah, that's really clear and really helpful. You know, all the while GCSE Maths has an exam aid, extended maths certificate will have one too. So that's, you know, that's really, really clear. Thank you. Sorry, Amy, another question for you. Are there any additional rules around what calculators can or cannot be used?
No, basically there are no additional rules. The rules are exactly the same for this qualification as the rules are for GCSE Maths. So there are no additional rules at all.
So any calculator that they're using for GCSE Maths, they can just carry on using the same one. They don't have to have anything different. And I'm sure as we're talking, there's some JCQ guidance being put in the chat to help you if you want to have a look at rules. Yes, I thought you might. Rules around calculators. I've got one more for you. A very common question. Does the Level 2 Extended Maths certificate count towards performance measures? And of course, this does umbrella all those Level 2 certificates, doesn't it? So we often hear the same question around the AQA Level 2 further maths. So do they count towards the performance measures, those measures for students?
No, they don't. So the only qualifications that will count towards your performance measures are GCSE Maths or GCSE Statistics. But what I do want to say is that this qualification is designed to boost, hopefully, the achievement in your GCSE Maths. So no, it doesn't count towards performance measures, but hopefully there will be a positive effect on your GCSE Maths.
Yeah, very well said. Because if you've got students that are maybe on the edge of that grade 6 to grade 7, if you think that they might benefit this extended maths certificate, that's going to boost your 7+ performance measure, isn't it? So and of course, by any of those students, you know, if this is improving their understanding of maths at a deeper level, then their GCSE maths is going to benefit, and so their grades should improve, which means those performance measures will improve there. Brilliant. I'm just checking the chat to see if there's any questions in there, and I can't see any just yet. Sorry, Amy, one more. Funding. This one comes up a lot around whether or not it's funded and at what point that the funding is available.
Yeah, so again, very quick answer. Yes, funding is available, and it's available for 14 to 16.
Fabulous. Good. Okay, thank you. So I'm going to talk about grade boundaries, and of course we're always somewhat nervous as teachers when there's a new qualification or a new specification. I certainly remember I was been teaching a long time, so there's been various changes to GCSE specifications and unknown grade boundaries, and so there is some kind of nervousness around that. And of course, none of us sitting here can tell you what the grade boundaries are going to look like, because of course grade boundaries are set once all of those papers have been marked and the performance of the students can be analysed, and obviously all of that statistical algorithms and data are applied to the performance, and then we can start to see where those boundaries are going to sit. So we have, to help, we've produced a grade descriptor document, and we put this together with the help of our chair and chief examiners, and what it is they would be looking like and what a pass will feel like, for example. And so you can get hold of this document. Again, the image on the slides is hyperlinked that takes you to that document. We have done this for each unit, so you can see I've taken a screenshot of the number unit, what pass learners will be able to do versus what distinction learners will be able to do across that unit. Just for example, I've also put the algebra screenshot on there as well, but those grade boundaries will be out on the August results day alongside their, the other level 2, level 1 results, and that's when we'll see what the first series of grade boundaries will look like. Again, as Mel said earlier, teachers and centres have taken various approaches, as they do for their mock exams at GCSE. I know lots of centres don't particularly take, or as they should, you don't take a previous series results and just apply that. You add it to your cohort's demographic to see if those grade boundaries are suitable. I know Mel is often quite mean with her grade boundaries. I was the same, because you always want them striving to reach the best that they can be, because you don't want them, I think Mel and I both agree on this, when you give them a mock and they think, yeah, I've done it, and then they take their foot off the gas because they think they now can coast their way into the live exam. So I know that teachers have decided to add their own grade boundaries to this, and that's completely up to them. But yeah, absolutely, we can't sit here and promise you any ideas as to what we think they're going to be on results day, but we certainly can tell you what the examiners are looking for in terms of the success criteria. I've got another question about how to find out more about the qualification. And Seb, I'm going to drive through the links and bullet points here, Seb, but if you're able to just talk through where everyone can find some more, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, so we always get asked, okay, yeah, thanks for the information, and kind of where can I find out more? And so firstly, I mean, hopefully everyone here is sort of already engaged with it, but there is that self-paced interactive getting ready to teach, which is always available for you to be able to dip back into and refer to. Also, if you're potentially a head of department and you want to sort of direct your teaching staff to particular points in it and those kind of things, that self-paced interactive training is there, and it'll remain there so for the foreseeable, so that you can dip in and out as you need to. All the previous training that we've done, so like our launch events, our live getting ready to teach events that we did last year, and an upcoming training as well, they'll all be in the CPD area of the Maths Emporium. All of the recordings are always embedded as a YouTube video inside the post, and we'll always make sure the slides are available there as well. And yes, so the things that we've got there already are, we've got to over the course of this year, we've done training networks on specific extended topics for GCSE, and the links therefore there as well. And we've also done a revision and an exam prep network in the run-up, which again, that recording exists, and you know will be revamped, and we shall re-promote it next year as we run up to next one. So in terms of sort of training and CPD, those are the things that we can go and find. Obviously you'll find on the links on here as well to the qualifications website, and this is also my forever plea as well. If you're not already on the Maths Emporium, make sure you get signed up to the Maths Emporium, because anything and everything that we produce for not just this qualification, all of our qualifications, the Maths Emporium is your sort of one-stop shop to be able to get all of the resources, past papers, grade boundary information, everything is all within the Maths Emporium.
Excellent, and we'll never stop plugging the free support that's on the Maths Emporium, and the revision and exam preparation network was really well attended, and lots of teachers attended that session and were sharing incredible ideas on how they've delivered their course alongside, and the chat was really busy about sharing good practice, and I absolutely know that we will do that again for the summer season next year, as we've got more teachers and more students taking this qualification. I was going to
mention as well, Nick. Obviously, we'll come on to some of these links later as well, but we're always so happy to hear from you as well. So I'll drop the email address again in the chat, which is teachingmaths@pearson.com. And you know, whether that's you need someone like a Mel, one of our trusted, credible specialists, to come in and give you a chat, whether you want to have just a 20-minute conversation with one of our subject advisor, just to fire over a quick few questions. There's 100 ways you can get in touch with us, and we encourage you to do that, because, like I say, we're here to support you delivering it. So if
absolutely,
all of those channels are available.
Yeah, fab. Thanks, Seb. I'm sure that email in the chat will be really helpful. Amy, we're going to come back to you to talk about all the. So Seb's just mentioned there about the CPD and network events, and he did briefly mention as part of the Maths Emporium what there might be on there, but you're going to do that a bit more comprehensively. So what's out there already?
So we've got so to start with, those first 3 bullet points, what you would expect from a qualification from Pearson. So you'll have your specification, your course guide, and your sample assessment materials. We've got the resources that we've actually already spoken about today. So we've got a scheme of work. We've got that level 2 EMC version of the GCSE maths scheme of work, the mapping for AQA, and the grade descriptors. But we've also got so we've got a specimen set of papers, so an extra set of papers there. We've got work solutions for both the SAMs and the specimen papers. We've got shadow versions of both of those as well. So again, another 2 sets of papers there. We've produced QLA, so question level and analysis spreadsheets for the SAMs and the specimen papers. We have topic practice papers for, I think it's 15 of the topics that are involved in that are in EMC. So and all of those include QR codes that take you to student-facing videos. So they're very much designed, this idea that there could be a lot of independent study going on here. We have a revision checklist, and the most recent thing that we've released are some GCSE maths and EMC revision papers. So in those, there's a section A, which is just GCSE maths, so the top end of higher GCSE maths content, and then a section B, which is your EMC style questions. So the idea of those is that you can revise the 2 qualifications at the same time.
And that's all for the first year.
I know. And they're all available in our sort of dedicated level 2 extended maths certificate area of the Maths Emporium. So
yes, so that screenshot is what the Maths Emporium looks like, and the cabinet there that has all of those things that Amy's just mentioned. So please do go and take a look around. You'll also see a link at the bottom there to the examination aid that Amy mentioned earlier as well. So if you're wondering where to get hold of that, that's in the cabinet on the Emporium, as well as on the website, which Seb mentioned earlier. So we, as you can see, we've been really busy putting together all of these. As you know, this qualification has only just been sat, so we were really keen to make sure we produced as many resources as possible for teachers to give their students practice materials ahead of that. So as you can see, not only the sample assessment materials, but the specimen papers, additional versions, shadow versions, worked solutions, all produced to help guide your students and you through what the first series would have been like. And now we've got a set of papers which are in the Emporium. You can see it's got a new banner on the cabinet there, so you can go and have a look at the first paper 1 and paper 2 that was sat this summer. So next question, Amy, sorry, I'm gonna pull on you again because you are the boss of this. And this is you spend hours, days, weeks, months putting this together. So what about now the exams are done, what's coming next?
Yeah, of course. So if you click on, so if you haven't already seen, we have released sort of a timeline of our post-series support for GCSE Maths, GCSE Statistics and this qualification. So I'll just delve into the details for that. So as Nick's already said, those, the PDFs of the papers are already available. You can get those on the Maths Emporium. So 22nd of July, like the other qualifications, the mark schemes will be available for those. End of July, we've got our Word versions of the papers. So, you'll be able to chop and do whatever you want with those papers once they're available. Work solutions, including with student-friendly guidance, which are expertly put together by Mel, who's on the call with us. So they'll all be released at the end of July. The grade boundary document that you're used to expecting from us for other qualifications will be available on results day, the 21st of August. Examiner reports the 26th. End of August, we'll make available a skills map, again, like you're used to with GCSE Maths, and printer-friendly question papers and mark schemes. End of September, we'll provide standard and enhanced QLA, so again, those question level analysis sheets. We have the very important Exam Insights Network delivered by our very own Nick on the 15th of October. We'll talk about that in a bit more detail in a little bit. And at the end of October, we will be making available some shadow versions of the summer papers. So yeah, a lot there, hopefully.
And you can hear that's why it takes Amy a long time to put all of this together, because we also, as you can see on that document, do a lot of support for our other qualifications as well. So I've got my PDF of this document printed. It's stuck on my notice board, so I can remember exactly when those dates are and when to expect everything out. So thanks for that, Amy. Seb, I know this might sound ridiculous after we've just showcased everything we've done in the first year, but is there going to be anything more released for the new academic year?
Well, yes, there is. So we're currently in production of a new set of mocks for EMC as well. So another unique set of unseen materials. We know how important that sort of secure unseen exam materials kind of are year on year, and to be able to embed. So this year we're getting a set of mocks produced. They're going to be released in the autumn term, probably around half term, possibly just after half term in the autumn term this year. But they're also going to be going on to the mocks marking service. I'm don't hold me exactly to this, but we have confidence that they're going to be on there from January. So if you want to take advantage of that, where we can provide the papers for you, get them marked for you, provide feedback, there's moderation services, there's all sorts of different ways you can do it. Again, I'll share a link. But yes, there's a brand new set of mocks. But the other thing I just wanted to say is that we're this is a new qualification. We're only a year in now, and so we're still shaping what all our support's going to look like. So if there are things that you think would really help you deliver this course over the next year, and you're thinking, right, well, I'm going to put aside several hours to put this set of topic papers together, or this set of analysis, tell us what you're doing, and then we can have a look at whether that's something we can do and make available for everybody. If you think it's a good idea for you, chances are there are others out there that also think it's a good idea and want to take advantage. So let us take that burden off you. So if you've got some of those things where you think, do you know what, there's a thing on this particular topic that I'm going to have to put together some workbooks for, or I'm going to have to put together some homework resources for, whatever it might be, let us know, and yeah, we can work with you on kind of how we can sort of take a bit of that burden off you and make sure that's available for everybody.
Yeah, that's really important. It's a really important message to get out there, that we're here to support you in whatever way you think you need us. And so that can be for any of our qualifications. If, you know, we know how precious time is for you guys. And so, as Seb said, if you think, oh, wouldn't it be really nice if I had a bunch of starters that did this, then use that email address, find us on, you know, the Facebook group or on Twitter, etc., and let us know, and we can take that burden from you. So next question, we're talking about the ongoing provision. So you've mentioned about the mocks, Seb, but what about ongoing training? I know Amy's mentioned there about the insights, so we'll look at the performance data from the summer. But what other CPD have we got planned?
So yeah, so and that insights one's going to be a really key one, because we you know, this is the first sitting, and we are going to be furiously on results day analysing every scrap of performance data that we can in order to gain those insights for, you know, kind of what's needed and what's coming up next. So we've put in the diary 2 topic deep dives throughout the one in the autumn term, one in the spring term, and we don't know the topic yet, because we're going to be using the exam insights from this summer to drive what those ones are, and yeah, so but we've set aside a minimum of 2 dates to be able to have some dedicated sort of deep dive into a particular topic that was either particularly challenging, didn't perform how we thought it might be, was particularly difficult, or had a disparity potentially with GCSE maths performance in those kind of containers. Whatever it might be, we'll do that digging, and then we'll do a deep dive into those topic areas. And then, like we've mentioned before, we've already earmarked a date next year in order to do that exam preparation and revision network. And again, that will be even more well informed based on, you know, having already gone through an assessment cycle. So that's our training that we've got in store for definite. There may be more that comes, but yes, that's our starting position anyway.
Yeah, really helpful. And I think those deep dives like we did last year, and I think we've mentioned they're already on the CPD cabinet on the Emporium. They were just topics that teachers felt unfamiliar with. You know, linear programming, for example, was one of them. Proof was another one, where teachers just felt a little unsure on how to really dig into that. So there's already been a couple of deep dive sessions from this academic year. So as Seb said, we'll absolutely be leaning on that data from the summer and also from you guys. So when you come along to that exam insights session, there will be a poll and an opportunity for you to have a voice and say, actually, I'd really like it if you could cover these topics or produce some of these resources to help me deliver this area with my students. We are covering lots of questions. Okay, the next question that I wanted to come back to, I mentioned earlier about a textbook, and there are some questions I want to pick up on in the chat as well, so I want to make sure we've got enough time. Are there any published or online resources? Yes, we have a textbook. So I'm sure you're aware that other textbooks are now being produced by other publishers, as you always find with new qualifications, but we have our own textbook. we had the examining team, the chair and chief of examiners were involved in the production and writing of this textbook. So there's a whole theme of continuity going throughout the resources here, where we've made sure that those senior examiners are involved with all of the resources. The textbook follows a structure of scheme that follows the structure of the scheme of work that we have. There are worked solutions and examples. There are some really good hints and tips. There's some chapters that have mixed practice. And before we started to produce a textbook, obviously there's a lot of research that goes into what the textbook should offer. And as we've said, it was all about the practice. They just want lots and lots of questions to be able to get involved with and doing, rather than examples or context related ideas. What's also really important as well is there are GCSE signposts throughout the book as well. So please do take a look. There's a sample chapter on the website that you can take a look at if you click on the image, which I believe is on this page. So the textbook also has walkthrough videos. They are the same as those free videos that we've spoken about in the free resources on the Emporium. So you can see the examiner kind of answer those questions. There are fully worked solutions on the solution bank as well. This is on your Active Hub, by the way. This is a digital kind of online resource. I've got the link on the next page. It's around £100 per year, and you get access to all of these. So the additional video walkthroughs and that solution bank. There are editable worksheets, and you can do a lot of those front of class books. You can have that hide and reveal function when you're putting questions up on the board. So those links that you need are on here. So the textbook is £30 or £29.99, and that Active Hub subscription is the link is there as well. And there's also a QR code. So if you want to open that link now and have a look at the free sample chapter, then please do take a look. There are, I think, until the end of July, the 31st of July, there is a 20% discount on print resources. So if you wanted to take advantage of that before you break up for the summer, then I would encourage that as part of a sale. But of course, you absolutely do not need to be purchasing these resources in order to deliver the qualification, but they're there if you so wish. So, as promised, we said we would leave some time to answer some questions, and I know Jay had put a question in the chat that I said we would come to. So I might pick on Seb, if that's okay. Jay's question was, obviously, thanks for everything, like creating all of these resources, but are there going to be more topic-focused lesson resources coming in the new academic year rather than exam practice? So he's got the textbook, he's planning and creating lessons for his year 10s next year. So wanted to know if there's any teaching and learning resources coming.
Yeah, no, it's something that's come up a few times actually. So we've done some early stages of planning of what we might be able to put together for sort of some front of class resources, and obviously kind of there is some of that sort of front of class stuff on the Active Hub offer that's available there. But I mean, our kind of bread and butter is always getting out those practice questions, past paper type questions and exam style questions, and that's what we focused on, having that bank. But I think it's something that's come up a few times, hasn't it, Nick and Amy? We've heard that sort of front of class PowerPoint type style thing of having a sort of resource ready to go. So we haven't got anything immediately to hand now, but we're in the early stages of planning some of those things, and I'd be keen to hear if that would be widely popular from other people in the chat as well, because then that might just accelerate our thinking a bit further.
Yeah, and absolutely. And Jay, please do, if they're, as you're creating your resources, please fire us an email using that teachingmaths@pearson.com email address to let us know exactly what it is you'd be thinking would be helpful. So whether you think some starters or I don't kind of problem solving questions, let us know what you've got in mind. If as you're going through that, we'd absolutely love to hear your ideas. Amy, you're really keen eye on the chat. Is there anything we've missed? Are there any extra questions that have come up that I might have missed?
Not so far, no, but I'll double check again. But
thank you. So before I go into the kind of
I think Mel wants to speak though. She's got her hand up very
I was just
politely.
going to say, before I go into the last kind of couple of slides, I wanted to hear if from Mel, and I know Chris is joining in the background if he's able to speak, but from a teacher's perspective, is there anything that we haven't covered or anything you want to share from that angle that you think teachers find useful? Let Mel go first.
I've got a question about the funding. You mentioned the funding earlier on, and I just wanted to clarify that the funding is not additional funding. It just means that schools will get paid, can pay for it out of their funds that they receive from the government. That's what we mean by funding.
Yeah, that's really important to confirm that. Yes. Chris Seeger, welcome. Sorry, I know you've had other training, so thank you for kind of shooting over and joining us. You've delivered this with a few students this year. So do you think, just on that idea of the teaching and learning resources, is that something you think is important, or have you found that it's all about the exam practice?
Well, first of all, the point you made a few minutes ago in terms of support and getting in touch with any of us, it is an open offer from me if anyone wants to speak to a cohort or a school that has delivered it. It was only a few kids, to be fair, but what we only had a small year 11 group anyway, but we wanted to, one, dip our toe in that qualification, two, offer stretch and challenge to some of these students. We had an unusual arrangement in terms of a teacher being available on year 11 slots. So we didn't deliver this qualification to the whole class. We took a couple of students out and delivered it to those guys. So the development of all the resources that's coming your way, just keep an eye on it. Brilliant. But for me and that initial toe dipping in, it was seeing the papers, and now you've got that set of papers with the new banner that Nick was saying across. Have a look at them, because our kids came out from it. The word from the one of them in particular was brilliant. It was what she picked up, and this is not words from me, the way that the questions started off and developed into that question. So the perfect example that I was looking at with her over her shoulder when she was talking through it was the SERDS question, simplifying it and then developing it into the question. The kids that we had enjoyed that qualification. So go and have a look at those papers. That's my biggest hint here. Go and look at those papers.
Yeah, really, really useful. And I know Mel and I were at a training session kind of the day after that second paper, wasn't it? And Mel was like, have you got the paper? Can we have a look? And we dove straight into that paper and was like, yeah, this is really good papers. Brilliant. So we've got 5 minutes to spare. I just want to reiterate how to get hold of us. I know that we work with Chris and Mel weekly, daily, and so any support that you would like from them to offer any of that CPD, or just talking to teachers that have got ideas on how to deliver it or how it has been delivered, please do reach out and take advantage of that. The teaching maths at Pearson email is at the bottom on the left. So Vicky Wood is the subject advisor for our maths qualifications. She sends out her monthly updates. Please do make sure you have registered to receive her email. It's once a month, so it's not, you won't get bombarded with emails But she will signpost particularly the dates of releases. You know, she'll say, don't forget to sign up for this event, etc. Where there are Facebook groups, look out for the Pearson Edexcel GCSE Maths Facebook group. She also shares the extended maths certificate updates in that group as well. There is a GCSE statistics one too. There's a great little community of teachers on there sharing all great things. I'm on Twitter, which is a really quick and easy way to get hold of me if I'm not on the teaching maths at pearson.com. So you can find me on Twitter, or X, should I say, sorry. And the last thing I'd want to share with you is there is a podcast episode with our product developer who ran the development of this qualifications. There's about 30 or so episodes. We've got an episode with Chris and Mel on there about GCSE results and how they process all of those results and feed into the year ahead. But there's lots of other episodes from some incredible guests as well. So please do take a listen at the or to the extended maths one, so you can hear more about the development and where the ideas came from as well. Seb mentioned the PD Academy, so any of those networks and training events that we've mentioned will also be on this link, but of course we've shared the direct links to those sessions earlier on. We hope that you have found this session really useful. Please do let us know, as always, if there is anything you need, any ideas, anything you want to share with us. We'd love to hear from you. And if you found the session really useful, if there's anything else you need, please do enter it in the feedback that comes straight to you at the end of this session. I think that's it from me and from us, all of us here. We hope that you are getting towards the end of your summer term and that you enjoy a very well-deserved break. And so until the next session, we wish you all the very best. Take care.